which I'm kind of happy about that.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
So it's just gonna keep going.
a little warm and miserable.
Trending down for the rest of the day.
You still want me to move some furniture today?
Y'all don't mind.
Okay. Then we'll take Joanne out there and make her work.
Okay.
There's only like 5 pieces of furniture that,
The mattresses and the
'Cause
little,
the dolly's still out there too.
the dollies out there, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
And
do
if you want to, you can send you can pull the 2 refrigerators out to buy the dumpster, and that'll give you room in the, more room in the carport.
move refrigerators.
Well, you got the dolly.
I'm
That'll give you more room in the, just make sure you don't put anything against the door, because when he hopes to be well enough to put the door in Monday or Tuesday.
which door?
The double doors that's on the right side of that big hardwood thing,
Doors, yeah.
that's the door that goes on the back of the house.
Yeah.
Where, and,
Why would I do that?
well, I don't know. Y'all put some of my stuff in with Dr. Blaze, but I told him yesterday he told me.
That's Jerry Ann's doing it.
Okay.
Actually, we put everything up in there to leave the path open. Your stuff was on the outside, his stuff was on the inside.
Well, he told me I could have anything over out there I wanted except the table and chairs and he said, so you all leave me the lawnmower. I said, yes, do you plan on running it? I said, no. I plan on giving it to Tommy.
We ready?
You wanna wait just a little bit more?
It's up to you.
Yeah, we'll wait just a second.
Okay.
We'll say good morning to our live stream audience. We're gonna give our stragglers just a little bit longer to get their coffee and donut. And then
That's right. Yeah.
We'll fire it up. in
Yeah.
about
Lovely day here in Louisiana.
5 minutes.
Just really, really lovely.
All right.
I wore my Kingdom Life shirt.
I like that.
You see that?
That's really good.
Yeah, we almost match a little bit.
It was
yeah.
very close.
Yeah,
Very close.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we talk about different styles and trends for different generations.
Yeah.
It's usually flipped though, huh?
Well, I'm pretty laid back most of the time.
That's right. That's
I mean, I generally be wearing flip flops up here.
But you got to play today. Do you play in flip flops?
I play flip flops, barefooted, tennis shoes, don't matter. I like playing barefooted.
Morning, Blake. How are you, man?
Blake knows. Playing barefooted? Oh yeah. Been doing it for years.
Gotta get the feel, right?
Yeah. Either one. Or 4 foot. Probably around here it's probably barefoot.
Barefoot.
You know,
Barefooted?
barefoot. I guess it would be barefooted, but
Really makes you think, but it's,
Yeah.
then you think about it. If you don't think about it, you just say very.
now I'm gonna be
Right.
thinking about that all day. Let's get an English professor up here.
Bare feet. Shoeless. There we go.
Oh, I do at home. Everybody used to make fun of me because I'd walk around barefooted out in the driveway. Okay.
Well,
Barefooted, yeah. Out there in that SB2, and everybody's like, how do you do that? Like, you just do it.
so what Blake just did was a social experiment.
Yeah, he did.
That was well done. All right. I'm tired of waiting.
Let's go.
All right. Am I on? Is my mic on? All right. Sweet. So we're going to go. So we'll say, hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
To you who got up and fought the mist and the drizzle and the
It's kinda-
dropping temperatures.
Yeah, it's a little depressing. I mean, it's,
And got here on time. Feel free to make fun of the people that come in late. We have no problem with that at all.
and I got to apologize. I forgot my reading glass today, so this could be an adventure.
I brought mine.
Okay. I might need them sometime, but you know, if I need them,
I don't
I'll
think
borrow them
these are
from you.
good to help you. But good morning to our live stream audience, man. Thank you guys again for choosing to worship with us, for coming in and joining this time. Man, I love teaching these classes, Billy, or excuse me, I love leading these classes.
That's right. And we didn't get very far last week.
Right, and a lot of times I don't feel like we're teaching much of anything, but I like it because of how much I learn.
That's right.
Right? It's
That's
just
right.
that extra time spent in the Word, that extra time spent in preparation and discussion, and a lot of times something comes out that, I grew up in church. And
I did as well.
You did too. And a lot of of times the words that we read are not words that we haven't read before, but you get to take them into a different lens or a different context and find a whole different meaning.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of times in the church, we take them a certain way
Take 'em a certain
for
way.
years.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about
We're going to talk about that. Yeah, that's right.
Towards the end, but yeah, we actually didn't get to finish what we started on last week. You notice we said feel free to make fun of the people that come in late, and nobody touched these two.
Hey,
They walked in and they were like, nope, nope.
that's right. You know, at our building here, the children's wing is way as far from this room as it can be. So I'll give you a pass on that one. And the other one is your wife, so I'll let you deal with that later. Let you deal with that one later.
So, and I can completely understand life with Eli, because usually the pass off restraint is me. So, so we've been talking about some certain biblical characters and the kingdom kind of characteristics that these guys displayed throughout their life. We know that nobody's perfect, and a lot of these folks, all of these folks, had flaws at some time, but that didn't keep them from being very impressionable people throughout God's kingdom,
Right.
throughout the whole of their life. So let's pick up with a couple more of those before we talk about our main theme today, which is taking these kingdom traits, these kingdom lives,
Out of these four
out
walls
of
here.
the walls, man.
Right.
Get out of here and put them out there.
Because it's easy to have the kingdom traits here at this building.
Sure.
You know, it's
Or
easy.
to pretend that you do.
Well, there you go. That's
All
right.
So, hey, who are we up first with?
Well, I was going to talk about Gideon.
All right.
Okay?
That's
I mean,
one of your
we're
favorite
cutting it down. You know, Gideon's one of my favorites because I'm thinking about where we're going today. And a lot of times we never feel like we're up to the challenge. You know, like we're not prepared or we're not worthy, you know. And that's what Gideon was. I mean, he's out there, the children of Israel, they've been overrun by the Midianites. They've taken over everything. And so he's hiding, trying to, bring in his crops when an angel of the Lord appears to him. And I love the first thing the angel says. It says, "Hey, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior of God." And I'm sure he went, "What? Wait, who? I'm the only one here." Yeah, I'm talking to you. And so sometimes I think we get caught up in this saying, well, I'm not worthy to do that. I mean, that needs to be an elder or a pastor or a preacher or whatever. You know, and sometimes we got to step out, like Peter did, step out of the boat. Well, Gideon said, okay, the Lord's going to be with me to attack, but first I got to check. So he brought a meal to this angel, and the angel zaps it with his stick, burns it up, and that still wasn't enough. So then Gideon said, okay, I'll go fight these guys with just a small army, but Lord, and he did a test with this fleece where he put it out and the fleece was wet and the ground was dry, and the next day the ground was dry, fleece was wet. I can't remember if I got those right. But God did it, just like he said. He said, okay. And so then he goes into this battle, or getting ready, he gathers up his men, and he's got like 32,000 guys. All right, I got this great big army. God says, no, too many. I don't want them to think they were the ones that got the victory. So he said, look, let the ones go home that are scared. So 22,000 left. So he's got about 10,000 left. So it's like, well, 10,000, okay. God says, no, still too many. I just need a small army. So then they go down to the river and they have this test, and if they're drinking and kind of looking around, he goes, that's the ones I want. 300. So the original 300 is Gideon and his 300. And of course, God gives them victory. But Gideon was always very humble about it. He's like, hey, God has the victory. We need to put our adoration and our praise to God, because there were a lot of Baal worship going on there, including his dad. And then I want to go to another guy, and this is Elijah. Now, Elijah is this prophet. And he goes, of course, there's a lot of evil going on, and he goes up to King Ahab and says, hey, look, it's not going to rain again till I say so. And so he goes off and hides somewhere for a while. And then they finally bring him back, and he meets with Ahab and all his priests and and they said, look, we're going to have a contest. And they get up there on a mountain, and they build this great thing. He said, look, let's put water on it. Whichever God brings down fire is going to be the one we need to worship. Of course, the Baal, the priests of Baal, they pour all the water on there. Or they didn't even pour water on theirs. They danced around, nothing. He made fun of them, did some trash talking. Hey, what's up with y'all? Finally, when it's his turn, he pours water of it. God brings fire down. Has this great victory. They kill all these priests. Here's this great warrior for God. And then all of a sudden, Jezebel says, I want that guy dead. And what does he do?
runs.
He runs. He runs and hides in a cave, way off somewhere, and God finds him. So he goes from victory to, I can't do this. And sometimes I think we have the victory, and we let, somebody say something or something happen, and then we're just like, oh, well, we just cower back, and I can't do this.
We're going to talk about that cultural influence.
Yes, it's a cultural influence.
Bowing down to that cultural pressure and cultural influence. Now, mind you, threat of death is way up.
Sure.
There. I mean, that's about as high as you can get. So, our human selves, and Elijah himself, besides being one of the greatest prophets of all of Old Testament Scripture, was still human and was still feared for that very thing. And
there's another good story about him later, but I'll let y'all read about that. When he's sitting up on the hill. You remember that one? Yeah, that's a good one.
Hey, he came back.
Yes, he came back. He came back strong.
He collected himself.
That's right.
He came back, so I don't care what that lady says. I'm going to do what God says, and it worked out for me.
That's right.
I had one more I wanted to mention and
Okay.
talk about, and it's one that's pretty well known. It's a story that we began learning as children and pass all the way through, and man, that's Adam and Eve. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, there's really only one mistake they made that we know of, but it was a pretty
big one.
Right?
Yep.
They were told that in all of the Garden of Eden and all of the paradise that God had created on earth, and literally, designed and built them and put them in and said, look, all of this, every animal, every plant, everything, like this was made for you. And said, but there's one rule, right? One rule. You ever said that in your life? You ever said that in your house? It's like, there's one rule.
Obey all rules.
Obey all rules. And so there was one rule, and of course, that was not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, there was some
They could eat
trickery.
from the tree of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kept everything sustained there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there was some trickery involved. There was some lies. There was some deceit. There was some outside influence that was allowed to come in. And inevitably, yes, they ate from the tree. They went to hide from God. Their punishment from that was banishment from the Garden of Eden. Now, the kingdom trait that I put to this, because we always look at this story and we think just about the mistake.
Like, I wouldn't have done that. Right?
Hang on, I'm getting some. There we go. How is that better? All right.
Were you off?
Nobody's been. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I kept switching it off so that I wouldn't cough
Well,
in my mic.
we would never do that, right?
We would never do that. We'd never put everything in our lives on one mistake.
Yeah.
But the kingdom attribute that I like to put with Adam and Eve is they were banished from the garden. Like, these were the only human beings that ever saw God in his true form and walked with him and communed with him. And then they were banished and all that was taken away. It would have been real easy at that point. I know it would for me to be like, well, that's it.
Give up.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's done. But they didn't.
That's right.
They continued their walk. For the rest of their lives, they continued to walk with God. They continued to obey him. They taught their children, their children's children, right? The story could have ended right there. Right? It could have not passed another minute without God's intervention had they not chosen to still worship, to still obey, to still listen, and to still rely on God. And so that's a big kingdom trait, like that they, after all of that, after being kicked out of the garden and being taken away from God's presence, they continued to walk with the Lord. They continued
And so there's a lot of stories like that in the Bible. I mean, we could touch on all. And we talked about. Did we get Zacchaeus last week?
No,
But I mean, there's
one.
one. I mean, there's so many. And if you look at each one, I mean, if you just read the Bible and you read about, especially these characters in there, they all have flaws. And some of them got it together, followed God. Some of them didn't. And if they did, they were blessed.
That's right.
So, and what were you telling me about peak of the week?
Oh, man.
Are we ready to jump into that yet?
Yeah, I think we are. So this whole lesson has been designed to at least mine and Billy's portion of it to get to this point that we're getting to today. And that was, we have talked about, Gary and Jared came in and they're setting up this kingdom and this idea of what God's kingdom on earth looks like, as well as what the kingdom of heaven will be like. And we look at this kingdom mentality. And so when we came in, and when I say we, it's the proverbial we.
Sure.
It's of course you and I and Lindy and Mindy and everything
Right.
we've talked about has been taking these characters and looking at these kingdom traits and how they
And applying them to ourselves.
And applying them to ourselves.
Right.
And then we get to where inevitably we were trying to get to, which is how do we take these traits? How do we take these portions of our lives outside of, like you say, outside of these walls?
That's right.
How do we push it outside of the church building? How do we influence our culture and community for the good with these kingdom traits rather than the influence on?
Right, because we don't want it to just be a life where when we come here, okay, I'm at church today, let me go punch my clock, let me go sit on my specified pew and all that kind of stuff. And then when you leave out the door, you go back to where you were. That's right. That's not what we want. We want to live a life where people see you and they're like, what's that Tommy got going on? There's something about him. I don't know what it is.
That's right. And so one of the things, and I've heard Mike say this many times, I've heard Alan say this many times, and they say, live a life for good. I mean, you can easily do this the other direction, but live a life for good that makes people question what's going on with
What's
you.
your motives?
I think that's exactly what you're saying, man.
Yeah.
Wow, what does that guy got going on?
That's
Why
right.
does he seem different?
Right.
And get that ask from them, and that's really what we're pushing for. So what you're saying, I was actually really, I was concerned about this week coming up, because when you're talking about taking your church life and your church morals and your church, your kingdom traits and aspects.
Your church.
All right,
Yeah.
outside of this building, it can really quickly get personal, political, touchy, and become a hard subject to deal with.
That's right.
Culture and religion clash. They have since the dawn of time. They will never not clash. And so so I was real nervous about that. I was like, hey, well, what if Billy and I, what if we put too much of our own personal lens on it? What if we inadvertently say something that is not in agreement with the eldership of our church or something like that? And
Right.
It's just like, oh man, there's so many ways that this can go wrong. And then I listened to Mike Kellett's Peak of the Week message from Wednesday. If you have not heard that or seen that, I highly suggest that you go back and listen to that and listen to Mike as our senior pastor talk about why we do the things that we do. Why specifically we as this Whites Ferry Road congregation do the things that we do, and mistakes that this church and its leadership has made in the past.
We have made plenty too.
Yeah, and things like that, and how we have evolved and how we have become a gospel-centered, outreaching church. And once I heard that, man, I felt so much better about it. And so as we start, Billy did some great research, and we're actually going to do some Bible flipping. So if you need to get your Bible out, or if you need to get your app out, or anything like that, we're going to go through a good scripture today. Because what better way to back up a lesson than absolutely with
That's right.
scripture? So we're talking about taking these kingdom traits outside the walls. And there's lots of ways to do this, because these traits matter in our daily lives as well as they do in our spiritual lives and things like that. And I feel like I bogarted a lot of time, but I do want to tell a quick story.
Go for it.
And so I work at a university. I work at one of our local universities, so I get to deal with a lot of young people and everything. And when I talk with a lot of young people, a lot of them tell me sometimes about what they call church hurt. They may have grown up in church or something like that, but something happened and somebody said something or someone did something and it wasn't the right way, and there was an offense. It seems to me like a lot of people get terribly offended way too easily today anyway, but that's just my personal opinion. They talk about this church hurt. And I think about that a lot, and then every fall on campus, a gentleman comes around. I believe he is from South Louisiana. He's a preacher. He's a pastor.
Yeah.
And he travels. He's pretty well known. He travels all over the state, and he hits up the universities in the fall when he comes out. And I don't know what they call him now. We used to call him a sandwich board preacher. And, the guys that wear the big sign and they stand out in the street and everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, got the little sound system.
We make fun of it.
Yeah.
We're like, the end is near.
Yeah.
Repent now. But, man, this guy gets out there and he gets in the quad and he has his Bible and he's ready to preach. And he gets up there and he just starts screaming at people. And all the screaming, every category, it all ends the same. He gets his Bible and he looks at people and he goes, "You're going to hell." It says it right here. You fornicators, you cheaters, you liars, you Jews, you Muslims, you're going to hell, you're burning in hell, get ready to die. Okay, so
Not really funny. Yeah.
scripturally, it's not really wrong, right? The scripture teaches us that the penalty, the wages for sin is death.
Right.
And the only way to get that is through the gospel of Jesus Christ. But that is not evangelism.
Right.
I've seen this man year after year. People all over the place have seen this person or someone like them. And I have never once even heard of somebody going, oh, well, you know, maybe I should change my ways. Maybe I should go get me some of whatever this angry man has, right? or let me change the 15 generations of culture that I grew up in because I have now seen the truth in the light. And I've got to say, as a Christian, like, it kind of embarrasses me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna be like, oh man, that's
I've
not
been
how-
embarrassed about things I've seen our church, not necessarily here, but other churches I've attended, that they hang their hat on. You know, and people go, oh, you're that church that does this. And you're
does
like,
this.
and you want to crawl under something. I mean, I've had some church hurt.
We've been that church.
Have you had some church hurt?
I have had some church
Yeah.
hurt myself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. So as we go into looking at pushing our kingdom traits out, this is something that Mike hit on Wednesday night, and I was really happy to see that. And it is, we need to be Christ-like, not church-like.
There you go.
The basis behind our outreach should be the life of Christ and how Christ reached out to people, not the legalistic terms and theological terms of our church.
Right.
Right?
Because
And
he dined with tax collectors and sinners.
That's right.
And
all day long,
he
all day long.
would catch all kind of grief about that.
That's
Yeah.
right. So let's start. So let's start with, as we go through in the lens of the virtues and stuff that we have looked about and talked about. And we're going to start in Romans 12, 1 and 2. Now I will tell you that all these verses are quite well known. Right? They're good, well known verses. We're not throwing anything obscure at you today. So Romans 12:1 says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. And here it is. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. All right, so the first thing is, we are meant to look different, right? We are meant to look different and act different than the world that surrounds us, right? So we have to expect that when we go out of there. That's what we were talking about a while ago, is I should pattern my life and do things in my life that make people ask, why am I different? Now, those things that I do different should be the love that I show, the compassion that I show, the forgiveness that I show. You know, and people say that all the time. To come up and say, man, that Billy guy, is he for real? I mean, he's always got a minute to listen, or he always wants to help. I never really see him get bent out of shape. Now, does that mean these things don't happen? No, man, these things happen. But it's just the air of how we conduct our daily lives.
That's right.
One of the things that we get in with this is our culture and our day and age is so instant gratification minded that we realize that, oh man, if we don't see results in something so quickly, that kind of brings something, this is kind of out of left field, but it reminds me, my wife and some friends of hers were discussing this not long ago, and it kind of really stuck with me as they went to talk about it. They said we should take more opportunities to tell people the things that we would say at their funeral. Right?
Yeah.
You got a term for it. What was
That's
the term?
interesting.
A flower or something. But anyway, they were like, hey,
Pre-mortem
something
praise.
like that. Or it's like, it's easy to get up there and talk so great about somebody once they left. But man, if you truly felt like that, you probably should have said something earlier. And that's what we're talking about, kind of that cross-culture, anti-culture life that we live as kingdom people should raise that question.
And where's our biggest? Where do we run into people the most? Work.
Yeah.
Social settings. Coaching, whatever. And we need to be the ones they look to and go, okay, when there's that brawl on the sideline, that's not us. When there's some gossip going on in the office by the water cooler or coffee machine, that's not us. And so, that brought to mind Matthew 5:13-16. This is right after Jesus did the Beatitudes on the Sermon on the Mount, talked about blessed are the meek and all that. And then all of a sudden he says, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? I mean, the food we cook around here. What is food around here without a little Tony's on it, right?
Right.
I mean, it's just bland. We want to bring some flavor. It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. I mean, when I used to coach, I didn't know anything about coaching baseball. And I started coaching. But I had so many parents would tell me, man, you're the best coach I ever had. My kid ever had. Wasn't that I knew a lot of baseball. But I loved the kids, and we'd have a prayer before every game, after every game, and it was like, hey, it's okay, we lost.
Yeah.
Tomorrow will be a new day. It's okay. And I didn't ever make a big deal about all that stuff.
Right.
And so, I don't mean to push myself up, but we got to be out there and show people what it's like to be a child of God.
That's exactly
And
right.
especially at work. At work, it's so easy to just fall in with everybody, griping, and sometimes it's just easy to do. But, we got to be the ones that say, hey, man, I got a good job here, or whatever, find something good about the place,
You're right, and many times, you never know the influence you have in
Absolutely.
somebody else's life. There is someone out there looking up to you. It could be a coworker. It may be a parent of a kid that you deal with. It could be a brother or sister or somebody in your family that you have absolute zero idea about how much influence you have over them. Now, it's one thing to look, if you're a parent, look at your kids. Yeah, you're the ultimate influence over them right there. But there's somebody else out there, for better or for worse, that you are influencing.
Yeah, and even, and I don't want to pat myself on the back. I can remember at work,
Pat away,
anytime
Billy.
somebody
I'll
had
pat
some,
you back.
well, I'm not working there anymore, so I'm retired, but anytime somebody had a problem, they would come to me and say, hey, would you mind praying for me? I got this going on. And I didn't go around preaching, but they just knew that I would do it. And so that always felt good that they would come to me and ask.
And that's awesome. And Billy worked for the federal government.
Go figure that. Well, I did. Yeah.
So let's keep going. So
Okay.
we've looked at our culture, man. We've looked at our social spheres, our workplace, and everything. So let's take it in house, right?
In-house.
In house, Deuteronomy 11.
And speaking of that, just like light of the world, your kids are looking at you all the time. No matter what you do, you're not going to sneak it by your kids.
I don't know if you know this, but they repeat things that you say.
Yes.
Like
yes, they do.
Even if mama's not around, like it comes back like 3 weeks
right.
later, and they're like, well, daddy said blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't remember your math facts, but you sure pulled that out fast.
Yep.
Deuteronomy 11.
So that's something to keep in mind before you read this.
18 through 21. Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates, so that your days and the days of your children may be many in the land of the Lord, in the land that the Lord swore to give your ancestors, as many as the days in heavens are above the earth. So we've kind of gotten away from Jewish culture. We don't necessarily bind them on our foreheads. And
Well, speaking of that, we stayed at an Airbnb or something one time. We went up to Arkansas. I want to say it was at Petty Jean. Mm-hmm. But there was a house that we rented, and that's where we would always have a little thing getting ready for camp, kind of deciding what our theme was going to be. And this was a Jewish-owned house, I guess, because they had verses and stuff written over every door.
They had a little thing right here
Yeah.
on the door frame that contained
It was
a
kind of
scroll.
cool.
Yeah, that's exactly
Okay, go ahead.
right.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Didn't mean
that's
to get off on that.
fantastic. But Moses is saying right here, he's like, look, teach your children this. Live it inside your household. Walk with it every single day. And that's the whole thing. That if we want to influence our culture for the good, they need to see the good work in our lives. right? That doesn't mean that I have to do everything perfect. That doesn't mean that my kids have to be perfect. It just means that day to day, going through life, it has to be seen. I have to stand out, right? From salt and light to everything, to the way that I approach my family, to the way that I teach them. We have said in this class, and we said it countless times when you and I did the Joshua class together, it takes one generation. It takes one generation for a society to fall away from God, right? Still to this day. It's probably even faster today because everything else seems so much faster. We're just flooded with so much information. But even back in Joshua's day, even way back in history, all it took was one generation. One generation not teaching the other these traits.
And we need to teach them.
Yeah.
But it's like as we talked earlier, it's such a visual culture we have now. They have to see you living this. You can say all you want, but if you don't live it.
But if you don't live it,
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
Well, speaking of Joshua.
Speaking of
Joshua, we talked a lot about Joshua in our class we had.
Our Joshua class.
Yeah. Was it Joshua or Judges? I don't even remember. It was Joshua. Okay. I get them all mixed up. Before the people went into the land of Canaan, he's like trying to get everybody straightened out. And he says, in Joshua 24:15, he says, "But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourself this day whom you will serve, whether the gods of your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are now living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." And sometimes it just takes, especially us as men, saying this is the way we're going to do things.
That's right. And we don't realize how quickly that influences everything out. So on the street that we live on, there are like 11 kids under the age of 10 that just live on our block, right? So there's roving bands of children, right? Bicycles, climbing in trees, running around. It's fantastic. Like, it's a wonderful time to be a kid. Now, I rue the day when the roving band of children becomes a roving band of teenagers.
Yes.
That is coming.
It's coming.
But they all know one another, and we think about that as that households are different. And we do things differently at the Perkins household than they may do at some of the other households down the street. And our children understand this. And so we've heard the conversations that they've had with their friends, and they're like, oh, well, yeah, well, I haven't seen that movie because we don't watch that at our home.
Well, good for
or
you,
I haven't
yeah.
seen that TV show because we don't watch that at our home. At least we don't. We try to protect that exposure, and we want these kids to be a kid as absolutely as long as they can. And that's good. So I don't realize that that effect that it comes, or we also know that there is a certain standard that's set within our home that applies to every person that walks into that home.
Right.
So even when children's from other families and things like that. Now, mind you, I'm not saying we live on the street with a bunch of terrible people. They're all wonderful people. But they understand that the rules that govern the house that they're in are the rules that they're expected to act.
That's good. Yeah.
All right. So let's get to the serious part of it. Let's get to the tough part of it. So what does the Bible say about our kingdom attributes of our church, right? Of our assembly? So how do we really gear up to affect our culture as a church? I'm going to start with 1 Corinthians.
And this is a long reading, which we don't have to read the whole thing. It's two whole chapters.
It's two
Did
whole
you condense
chapters.
it?
Yes,
Yeah,
I condensed it down.
Okay, good. It's 1
All right.
Corinthians chapter 12 and chapter 13. It just talks about how in the church we're all different. We all have different jobs. We all have different abilities. We all have different talents in serving. And so go ahead.
All right.
I just want to make sure we knew where we were there.
So we're going to go 1 Corinthians chapter 12. We're going to go 12 through 14.
Okay.
So Paul writes, just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all of its many parts are from one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jew or Gentile, slave or free, and we were all given one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but many. And so we're all from different backgrounds. We all have different histories. We all have different upbringings, different educations and things like that. But we are unified by the Spirit of Christ.
Absolutely.
Right? And we are all endowed with that good, and we are all endowed with that responsibility to spread that out and to teach it, regardless. And so that goes back right at the very beginning. You when you're talking about Gideon, you know, you were saying, hey, well, you know, I can't do that.
I can't do that,
I don't have
yeah.
the authority to do that. I don't have, you know, the accolades or the paperwork or anything like that. And hey, we don't either.
Well, and it's not like everybody's got to come up here and teach a class either.
That's right. Yeah, you don't
We
have
need
to
people
teach
to
a
do whatever it takes in the church. Some people are just meant to encourage.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
Man, Frank, man, I think about Frank all
Frank
the time.
holding the door
Frank,
open.
Frank is
Oh,
like
my goodness.
greeter extraordinaire.
Yeah.
And like you cannot meet this guy
right.
without putting a smile on your face. Mm-hmm. And he is always there. I think, was it last year he came up and everybody was like, oh, Frank, we didn't expect to see you. And he's like, why would I not be here? And we're like, didn't you have surgery yesterday?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, yeah, but they let me out of the hospital.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay. And he's right back at that door, man. We love you, Frank, man.
Yeah.
But anything, there are so many places to serve. Billy and I will tell you from experience, there's always help needed in the children's department.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you know, find that place. Like you have that ability, and that's serving within your church. You also have that ability to take that spirit that you've been endowed with outside into the community.
Well, and it's just like when Jesus, they go up to the upper room, and then he gets down and starts washing feet. That was a lowly job, and he just showed them, hey, you know, we all need to serve others. It's not all about us.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I don't really get any gratification about being on the live stream. I mean, I'll do it because I can and I want to. I have yet to even go back and watch one, which is really kind of amazing. I'll probably be really disgusted with myself when I go back and watch one.
We're always our own hardest critics.
Yeah,
Right?
but you know, I'm always amazed at CR when you get these guys come in there. And man, let me tell you something. These cats are coming out of some rough backgrounds. You know,
about as rough as you can imagine.
A lot of them have hit bottom. They come back, and one of the first things they have them do is just put up chairs, put chairs out. And I mean, they do it immaculate. I know I bring that one up all the time.
They get the
but I see it.
strings out,
They get the
they
string
get-
out,
yeah.
and they're real careful. And I'm like, it's pretty impressive.
Well, and it's
Because I'd get out there and just throw them out there. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me,
But some
that's
of
just
these guys
that
have-
means a lot to me. Is just
Yeah,
seeing that.
Guys and girls, I mean, they've never been given an ownership of responsibility.
That's right.
They've never been given a chance. As a matter of fact, in a lot of church situations, they've probably been looked down upon or even shunned away.
And we shouldn't, based on what this reading tells us right
figure.
here. That's
Go
right.
Figure. You wanna wrap it up with John as far as our?
Yeah. Let me get there.
We're gonna go John 17.
And this is Jesus in the garden before
Yeah.
he's about to be betrayed.
This is Jesus
I mean,
speaking himself. You know those red letters? Yeah, we're gonna tie it up with that.
Let's see here. I don't have my glasses, so I got to find it. It's going to take me a second here. Okay. Jesus prays for all believers. Verse 20, chapter 17. My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. And I mean, you can keep reading, but I mean, he just talks about, he wants us to be unified. He wants the world to see us, you know, banding together, showing God's glory.
And Jesus himself prayed this
Yes,
upon us.
for us.
He says, I pray that they can come together in one spirit.
That's right.
We can disagree on stuff. I have no problem disagreeing. But we come together so that the world sees him.
Right.
And so you're talking about a prayer upon us from God himself, right? That just says, hey, look, I want the world to see me because of their actions, because of their traits, because of the things that we endow them with. Let
That's
the
right.
world see that.
Yeah, because we've all been fighting amongst each other for years, not just within our own church,
Whether in our own
but with
church,
other churches.
within denominations,
Yes.
within
And it's sad.
you know, sides. All right, so you know, we argue within our own circles in our own church. We squabble within our own denominations. between even our bigger separations between Catholicism, Anglican, Protestantism, you know,
Yeah.
before the divisions and all that, all the way up to the other religions.
And what does that tell the world?
Yeah, exactly. That
Yeah.
they don't have it together.
Yeah.
Right. That they say they have the truth and they say they have the ability to save us all, but they can't get themselves together.
Right.
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 And it does that. We can. Right. We do. And it's all about. We're going to hit that. I have just a little bit of time. I wanted to squeeze
Okay,
in
go ahead.
one more quick story. I heard a pastor speaking not long ago, and this story hit me, and it's just kind of hung with me and everything. And it's about the bleeding woman.
Okay.
They talk
yeah.
about, I believe, in
Right.
Mark 5, I believe is where it was. And they're passing through the crowd and everything, and the woman, she fights her way up. She's like, look, if I can just get up there and just touch him. Right? If
Just
I
touch
can,
him.
if I can just
Yeah.
touch him. Like, no doctors have been able to heal me. No priests have been
Right.
able to heal me. I know if I can just get up there and touch him. She gets up there.
That's a lot of faith.
And she touches his cloak. And Jesus stopped, and he said, he felt something go out of him, and he stopped and turned around, and he asked everybody, and the disciples were like, hey, look, there are people everywhere, man. Everybody's touching you. He's like, no, somebody touched me. And he narrowed it down to her and told her, he said, look, your faith has healed you, right? Go and never suffer again. That's it. And so this pastor pointed that out, and he went on to say, it's like, man, Jesus will come to you. Like, Jesus will find you where you are, and he will fix your problem. But if you seek him out, he'll change your whole world. Mm-hmm. And that just hit me, and that's right. That's right. That lady didn't sit and wait for Jesus to come and find her and fix her bleeding problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
She fought through the crowd. She went against the grain and everybody to seek him out.
That's
And
awesome.
her entire world
Yeah.
was changed.
Yep.
And so that's what it is. So we live that life so that people seek out what it is that creates that light in us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that person salt and light? What do they do differently? And that doesn't mean why do they seems like they have a great day every day or everything works out their way. But what is different about them? What is that spark in them I need to know? And that then gives us the opportunity to share our Christ.
Yeah, but you don't have to say, well, I go to Whites Farrow Church of Christ. You
Not
know,
our
it's
not
not
our
about our
rules
church.
of
It's
the
like, look, man,
church, right?
Jesus has done a lot for me.
That's
And
right,
it,
yep.
it just opens a lot of doors for you.
And that's what it was. So as we wrap up, and Gary and Jared are going to come back, and they're going to put a nice big bow on this present and everything. And so, as we go out there, and as we try our very best to be this salt and light, as we fight against our culture, as we lead our families, as we want to be the representative, of Christ for all this, we remember that it's not our church life that we're putting out there. Mm-hmm. It's our relationship with Christ that we're putting out
That's
there.
right.
And that goes for anybody. And that's why as we lift this up, we say, kingdom life is about being Christ-like. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily church-like.
Not church-like, Christ-like.
Kingdom life is about being Christ-like.
Amen.
Amen. Billy, you got anything else to
No,
say?
no,
It's always
man,
a
that's
pleasure
good,
spending
yeah.
time up here with you, and I
Yeah.
absolutely
I'm sure
love
we'll be
doing it.
back sometime.
I reckon so. Thank you guys for joining us
Yep.
online. Thank you guys so much. We'd like you to stick around. A live stream should be cranking up here in about 30 seconds. And so we love you.